Mesachta Menochos, Daf Nun Ches Amud Aleph. We're starting from 8 lines from the bottom. Nun Zayin Amud Beis, and I'm going to start from Itma. Itma we learned Hamayla Mekulam, one who brings one of the shirayim that we spoke about, whether it's a carbon he put the murim and the shirayim of the behemoth goes to the kahanim or to the balabatim, or by koimetz the koimetz goes to the mizbeach is burnt and the shirayim of the mincha. So if he places it al gabi hakevish, what's if we know it's also for him to put on the mizbeach al gabi hakevish? If he places it on the ramp, Rabbi Yochanan says he's chayiv, even if he places it on the ramp, as if he was making on the mizbeach. Rabbi Elazar ima potter, oma potter. Rabbi Elazar says it's potter. Rabbi Yochanan says it's chayiv the tanya because we learned in the brayso. It says hamizbeach. It says the extra word hamizbeach because that's one pasuk. And then it says carbon reish takiv isam laHashem el hamizbeach is extra. Ainly hamizbeach, the hay. Others say it's the hay. Ainly el hamizbeach. I only know the mizbeach. Keves menayim. Where do I know that the ramp also? Tamad leinu el hamizbeach, like you said, the hay lo yalo. He shouldn't bring it on the mizbeach. Whatever Elazar ima potter. Allah says it's part of my time. It says in the pasuk, so udvash, kam reish takiv isam laHashem. It says se'oid, which represents the shtei halechem, which is called reishis. Udvash, takiv isam laHashem. They you can be makir. Who the Rabbi Allah? That's where the Torah was marbe, and that kevish kimizbeach. That if you put it on the ramp, it has a din like the mizbeach, and it's also. But any other carbon which is not called reishis, it's not going to be a yisur to place it on the mizbeach. What does Rabbi Yochanan learn with oisam? Because Rabbi Elazar said oisam means dafka the two reishuses, that the soy and the vash, but not any other mizbeach. So what does Rabbi Yochanan do with oisam? Maybe look at the Tanya. We need it like we learned in the brayso. I would have thought a yachid could bring the shtei lechem as an adava. The koydani ba mitzvah for sachat tishmar. And I would apply the pasuk that says, whatever words come out of your lips, Tishmer, you have to guard it. You have to do exactly like you made a neder. Only what kind of shtei alechem could you bring? If it's a tzibur, a marti lechol, because it says takrivu meloshin rabim. I would have thought that a yachid cannot bring the shtei alechem. Says the Gemara. Why? Because there's no such a concept that he brings al sachev. We don't find that he brings a chayiv similarly. Maybe, but I would think a tzibur could, because in tzibur we find that in shtei alechem al sachev shemaybe chayiv like the shtei alechem that's brought in shvuis. That's a chayiv. Tamalei ma'osim comes the pasuk. The osim tells us only b'teres chayva. Could a tzibur bring it? Nish b'teres nadava. So you want to yesh lecha lahavi. By the carbon chayva of Seder Dvash, it says carbon reishis takiv oisam. So it says the Gemara. There's no other carbon but carbon reishis. Yeah. So he says, what carbon would you think? Would you have thought that he could bring out in the dava? What would be the foul of that he could bring on the dava? Shtei halechem min aseru v'yikurim min advash. He said, I'm sorry, which is called the chayiv? Which one? But where do we find that the shtei that the se'ir and the vash is a chayiv? So shtei halechem min aseru v'yikurim min advash. That's where we find that it's a chayiv. Shtei halechem is that you bring a shvuis. That's a chayiv for the tzibur to bring shtei halechem, in order to be able to eat from the new truma. And bikurim is brought from the dvash. And I told you by bikurim, even though there's no, in bikurim it has nothing to do with dvash, but it says that the Gemara says in Chulin, when it says lemashcha hainu ligdula kederech shemalachim oichem mishmit. What's the derech of malachim that how do they eat? So he says shereshoya hakoyin la'achlam like a melech lechol tzuva in any form that will make it sweeter. You're going lolu shulataganus asol asayla shal shiyari amilcha bidvash. Kedat mit oil. Yeah, he says you can. So you see, dvash is chosh vezach, and it represents the bikurim. Says the Gemara, Shtei Alechem lo yikrevu nedava. You're saying the Shtei Alechem cannot be sacrifices in nedava. But Tanya, we learned in another brayse, Im nema kol se'er. If it already says kol by se'er, lama nema kol devash. What do you have to say kol by devash? Learn one from the other. Im nema kol devash. And if the Torah would say just kol devash, lama nema kol se'er. What do I need a kol by se'er? And for the Gemara b'nei sheyesh b'se'er mashem b'devash. Each yesh b'zeh mashem b'zeh. Se'er hatamayla ibe has a mila over devash, and devash has a mila of yesh b'devash mashem b'se'er. And there's a mila in devash over se'er. Se'er huta miklolei b'mikdash. Se'er we find that it's mutter to put on the mizbeh. Put on. You can burn it in the Beis Hamikdash, meaning put it on the mizbeh. We said we can't. We'll soon get to that. But devash lo yhut miklolei. Honey, never. But mikdash you can't find that you put it on the mizbeach. And what's the mila? So that's the mila of se'er over devash. Devash you can never find the mitzias that you put on the mizbeach.
Be too sticky over there.
You don't have to say those things.
No, he's saying why you need coal by each one. And what's the mila of devash over se'er? Devash hu to be shiyar Menochos. The vash is you're allowed to shmir. I made a mistake. Here is where he says the vash is mutter to use on the shiyarim from the menachos, the leftover from the mincha. You're allowed to add an ingredient. Which ingredient? The vash, because that it says when they gave to the shiyarim menachos that they should eat it like kings. And there, how do you eat like kings? They would fry it and dip it in honey or smear it with honey. So loy huta b'shiyar menachos, but you cannot add se'er to the shirayim menachos because they'll make it commonly. So that's why there's a mila from dvash over se'er. So the Gemara ha mipnei sheyesh b'se'er mashem b'dvash. This is that there's a se'er. That's why we say kol by se'er. V'yesh b'dvash mashem b'se'er. And then there's in the mile and dvash, which is not in Seir. Hutzachleimer kol Seir, but Hutzachleimer kol dvash. The kol is coming to tell you that, that leisachrivu, because there's each one has a leniency that or a mila that you would think you're allowed to put it on the mizbeach. Seir has a mila that is taka burnt on the mizbeach. So maybe I would have thought you're allowed. That's why I need the kol, so you're not allowed. The vash has a mile that you're allowed to mix it with the shiari mincha. So I would have thought that you're allowed. That's why it says kol. So the hut miklale. Where do you find that? So is allowed to be burnt on this bayach. The migdash. Ma'inu. Which is this? Says you want to love. Is it the not shtei alachem? The covenant dava. Obviously, the shtei alachem. And you said the shtei alachem also the dava cannot be brought as an adava, nishkin yachid, nishkin tzibur. It's never allowed to be brought as an adava. From here, the implication of the Gemara is mashma shtei alachem is burnt as an adava on the mizbeach. It's likar b'mayim. It only means that it's brought with the behema, together with the behema. But you cannot be makar the shtei alachem b'teris adava on the mizbeach. Only that the shnei kvasim is brought with the shtei alachem. And since you're allowed, and they're brought together. So since they're brought together, so it's considered as one carbon. So when you brought the behemoths, to the kvasim, the shnei kvasim, that you brought on the mizbeach, it's as if you put the shtei alachem on the mizbeach. It's as if, he says. If I could show you how the lashon that he uses, so he says hakvas ma'alachem. Nechshavin ki carbon echad. It's mamish considered as one carbon.
They're both true.
Because the hanafa is lifted together. It's like it's connected. It's one thing. Hilkach avsheim aktirim es lachmei hachametz atzmon. Even though you're not burning the chametz, the lachmei chametz on the mizbeach, mikol makom kasher maktirim es eimuri hakvasim. When you're burning the fats of the keves, maktirim carbon sheyeshimay chametz. It's as if you're putting the shtei alachem on the mizbeach. It's one thing. So in fact, you might have really Yachi bikurim nami. We find by Bikurim there are behemoths that are makim on the Mizbeach, and you don't say the Bikurim is one. The Tanan, HaGoizolis shall gabe asalim. When they bring the baskets, there's a chilik. You know, we say the rich get richer from by Bikurim, and the poor get poorer. The rich that come with a silver keli, with the peters, or the golden keli, they take back the keli. And the aniyim was coming with a basket, leave it there, they become even more. Just like, stop. So he says, the gezolis, the pigeons, were brought together with the salim. And the salim that was in their hands were given to the kahanim. So why don't you consider bikurim also?
Why does the Kohen get to keep the salam? What's the reason?
It's given. The bikurim are given to the kahanim. The baskets, yeah, they keep it. I don't know. That's the Torah says so. But his kasha is silver you take back. If you're a wealthy guy, you take back your baskets. Just the fruits. You take the fruits. I'm joking. Anyway, so he says over here, the Pearl Mamish, he said, Bikurim is not, it's not allowed to be burnt on the Mizbeach. But here, the Bikurim are brought with the animals, so we should say it's one with the Bikurim, and say it's as if the Bikurim is burned on the Mizbeach. You're allowed to burn the Bikurim on the Mizbeach. Says, Yemana, no, it's not considered one carbon. It's as if it was burned. The Gezolim, no, it's as if. It's as if. The Shtei Alach is also not burned on the Mizbeach. He said, when you mark if the two kvasim, it's as if you put the Shtei Alachim on it. Says, you want to by Bikurim say the same concept? Says, no, it's not one carbon. Yeah, but you also mark it Gezolis on the Mizbeach. Say, since it's coming together with Gezolis, it's as if you're burning Bikurim on the Mizbeach. He eats the fruits, but it's as if it's being burned on the Mizbeach. Says, you want to know, it's not one with the Gezolim. Hanu la'ata bikurim hudrasa. Says that zweite Sachen bichlal. The gezolos that are brought is like it's crowning. It's making like a crown for the bikurim that you're bringing. It makes it more choshev, but nish that it's one with the bikurim. So the mafarshim is Rashi is, but a shlamim was brought with it. Says the Gemara, you're right. The shlamim was brought with it, but it didn't have to bring it together with the bikurim. You could bring it much later. So that's nice. It's not considered as one. Somebody who brings from the meat of the chatas onto the mizbeach. Now, the chatas doesn't go to the mizbeach at all. It's all eaten by the kahanim. You don't put it on the mizbeach. You only spray the blood. Right? And the whole bus is eaten by the Kahanim. There's nothing that goes on the Mizbeach. So,
roast chicken.
Okay, so he says you're not allowed. Well, what's if he puts on the Mizbeach? Ma, what's going to be the din?
They didn't have chicken. They didn't use chicken.
It says only if a part of what is there a Isser to put the Shirayim on the Mizbeach? If there's some of it being burnt on the Mizbeach, then the Shirayim is not allowed to be burnt on the Mizbeach. But this one, there's no Kol Shemimenu. There's not V'hai Eimimenu Leishim. By the Chatza'if, nothing of it goes on the Mizbeach. So maybe you're not allowed. Is a Isser to burn on, is it mutter to burn on the Mizbeach? The whole Isser is only if something of it is burnt on the Mizbeach, then you say the Shirayim is not allowed to go on the Mizbeach. But here, nothing of the chicken is going to be burnt on the Mizbeach. Or a bird, yeah. Or perhaps called shmei carbon. Anything that's called a carbon has a din like shirayim, and since the oif is called a carbon, we know befedish it's called a carbon. It says carbon. What's the adam? It says the lashon carbon by it. Nami, and this chatzai shmei carbon is called a carbon because it says so maybe it has a shame carbon, it has a din like Shirayim, you're not allowed to burn on his bayah. Amalei, so Rav Chizda answered to Rav Machama, Kol sheshmei carbon, anything that has a name carbon is usher like Shirayim to put on his bayah. V'hai nami, and this chatzaiv shmei carbon is also called a carbon, and therefore it's included in the Isser, you're not allowed to burn it on his bayah. So the Gemara. Kitanoi, the shail of Rabbi Bachama is really a machlekes of Tanoim. Rabbi Lezer Kol Shemimanu Leishim Rabbi Lezer says only what's usher to burn on the Mizbeach, only if of that carbon there's a part that's burned on the Mizbeach, then the Shuraim is not allowed to be burned. But if nothing is burnt, then it's mutter to burn on the Mizbeach. Rabbi Akiva Eimer, Kol Dov Sheshmei carbon. Anything that has the name carbon is already forbidden to burn on the Mizbeach. What's the nafkamina between them? So the Besar of Chat Saif is going to be the Chilik, like we just said. Chat Saif, there's nothing of the basa of Oif that's being burned on the Mizbeach. So according to Rabbi Lezer, there's no Isser. The Isser is only if a part of the Oif is being burned in, nothing of the Oif is being burned. And according to Rabbi Akiva, since it's called a carbon, it's also, it has a din like Shirai. Rav says another chilik. Loig shaman shal metzera ikmanayil. The loig shaman of a metzera that was healed. So what's the seder of Tara? That he brings taka karbanis, ash metzera, and he brings a lug of shaman zayis. What do they do with the lug? They spray 7 times towards the kodesh hakadashim, and they also put on the earlobe, the right earlobe, and also on the toe. So. And the rest is eaten, the rest of the oil is eaten by the Kahanim. So there, it's nothing goes, no oil is burnt on the Mizbeach. So the Tani Levi said, but it's called a carbon, called Karbanan, Lerabis Luk Shel Shametzera, that it's also given to the Kahanim to eat, and it's called carbon. So if it's called carbon, according to Rabbi Akiva, it's also to burn shaman on the Mizbeach. According to Rabbi Lezer, since nothing from the shaman is burned on the Mizbeach, is mutter. No inyan. It says this, in the Torah it says you're not allowed to burn on the fire of Hashem. Ainly el kulei. I only know if he burns a complete shear of Seir. Miktsase, what's if it's only a part of the shear? Menayin, how do we know there's still a Isur? Talmud Leimer, Kol Seir. Kol Seir is coming to be marber, that even if it's a Miktsas, you can also be over on the love. How do you know if you took this Seir and you mixed it with matzah, it's also Asr? Says you want Talmud Leimer, Ki. It says the extra word Ki called. The Ki is coming to tell you that even when it's mixed with matzah, it's also. What is the kavanah? What is it considered as a midah shleim of seir? And what's called miktsas? This is the kavanah. Seir that you shouldn't burn, that's the shear of a kazayas. Chatzi zayis menayin. How do we know miktsas, which is a half a zayis? Talmud lema, that's usher to burn on them as well. Talmud lema called that even a chatzi zayis is also. How do you know if you mix it with matzah and you can't recognize the seir? Talmud lema ki called. The ki comes to tell you even when it's mixed with matzah. Rava says no. Say about the k'tir, he learns differently. Say about the k'tir, you shouldn't burn the seir. Only a koimetz, only a full of koimetz is also chatzi koimetz menayin. How do you know if it's a half a koimetz, it's also aser of seir? If the seir there, the kol comes to tell you even a chatzi koimetz of seir is aser. How do you know if the seir was mixed with matzah? It's also aser. Ki kol. The key is extra key kol. The key is extra to tell you that even if it's ataruvis, it's aser. Ataruvis with matzah. What is Abaye and Rava arguing about? Abaye Sava yesh kometz pachas mishnei zeizim. Abaye says when you make a kmitza, the kmitza could be less than 2 olives. So when you say mixas means half of that. So if it's less than 2 zayis a kmitza, then half of that is even less than zayis. So that's why he says even less than a zayis is going to be chayiv. Rava will say no, a kmitza can only be 2 zaysim. So mixas means 1 zayis. So he says it's minimum zayis. And now we're going to say it inside. It says Yomara Abaye Sava Yesh Kometz Pachas Mishnei Zaysim. Abaye holds a kmitza can be less than 2 zaysim. V'yesh haktorah b'chus mekazayis. And you still there's the isav haktorah by you can be makte a half a kometz on the mizbeach a little bit at a time, that you're allowed, but that comes out even less than a zayis. But if it's Seir, it's going to be awesome. But Rabbi Amar ain't Kaimis Pas Mishnah Zeisen. Rabbi says that Kmitza will sein minimum 2 Zeisen. They knocked out of Chus Kizayis. So when you're doing a half a Kmitza at a time, which you're allowed, it has to be a minimum of Kizayis. So if you want to eat them in your land, somebody who's makter, Seir, or from the Vash, Agab Mizbeach, on the Mizbeach, Amarava, Leikim Yishum, Seir. If he puts Seir on the Vash, he's going to get Malchus for the Seir. You're not allowed to put Seir on the Mizbeach. Well, Leikim Yishum the Vash. And also, Leikim.
It's only one lav.
Chol Seir and Chol the Vash.
It doesn't say
Each
it's a separate lav.
Separate, Chol Seir and Chol the Vash.
It doesn't say what's the
No, it doesn't say twice like that. No. And he also Leikim Yishum Eidavei Seir. 4. Mishum Eidavei Seir, because the Seir was mixed with the Dvash. And for that one, and for the Dvash being mixed with the Seir. So Tais is
Why is
Fimo.
that a separate issue?
That, but Tais is even more. Tais says if it's the same Seir and the Vash, and you already Chai Malchus for it, who cares if it got mixed up? You already were Chai for each one. Now you're mixed up. Nachachiv. I mean, you're already Chai for each one. So Tais says, so that's he put Seir, he put Vash, and then he took another item that was a Seir Davash mixed. So it's not just the same Seir Davash and then mixed it. There was Seir and Davash separately, and then he brought another take. He brought Seilis, which was Seir together with Davash, and
Mix the two together.
it was mixed. L'chatchila, that's what he put on his bed. He had 2 separate, one Seir and Dvash, and then he had the Seir mixed with Dvash. And so that's how you have 4. Okay, Abaye ain't looking on Lav Shabbat Klolis. Abaye says on a Lav Shabbat Klolis, one does not get Malchus. Now, what does that mean? The others say, for what the Torah said befedish for Dvash, it's a Isser. For Seir is a Isser, that you get Malchus for. For the Iruv, that's a Limud. For the Mitzas and the Limud, these are Limudim, you're not going to be Chayiv. Others say, no, he doesn't get any Malchus at all. Because his lav is not similar to. We learn all the lavim that get Malchus from the lav of Chsima. Chsima is that you're not allowed to muzzle the behemoth while it's threshing the floor, while it's working. So it says Loisasa. If I have the pasuk, I would say it. Anyway, Bekitze over there, it's a direct lav. Loisasa. It says it clearly. Here you have a whole bunch of pratim, which is not written the fetish. You have kol tells you even mixas. Ki comes to tell you even if it's mixed. So since it's a lav shebechlolis with so many pratim, so it has to be similar. The lav has to be stated like the lav by loisachsa.
So eliminate the first words, eliminate the X words, and just keep the loy.
Doesn't work that way.
That's all.
No. So he says that it's not similar to the loisachsa because the Torah says about fetish. I was just trying to find the pasuk. Here he brings down, but these are words that say befedish netayra lo yikach. So that's not called a lav shebichlalis. A lav shebichlalis is that you're making limudim. That kol is telling you mixas, and ki is coming to you if it's mixed. So these are things that are not written in the fetish in the pasuk.
Because the lav includes.
This lav includes a whole bunch of dinim. Which that is what makes it into a lav, klolistic lav. Okay, and the only we learn out from chesima the lav to chesima that it has to be similar to it has to be stated the way of a lav to chesima, and it has to be befetish. If not, you're not going to be chai malchus.